Because I think for the most part, food looks most appetizing in full color. What's shaking, bacon? I'm Joni Simon. Welcome to my studio. This is where I do food photography. So if you're into that, you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but you're editing and you're staring at the photo and you're going, is that tablecloth really white? Or like, why does that bun look like the wrong color orange? And like you start obsessing over the colors and wondering if they are correct. Well, never fear. There are two super helpful tools that I'm gonna walk you through today, how to use them to ensure that your color correction game is on point. So if that sounds good to you, you stick around. So I think we can all agree that one of the keys to great food photography is in quality color, and not just making sure that the colors look beautiful, but that the colors are consistent, that the way that it looks on our computer and then when it gets printed in a magazine, that it looks exactly the same. And so in order to ensure that, our friends at Datacolor have a whole variety of products set to address those very problems. And so they have generously sponsored today's video and actually provided me with their Spyder 5 Pro for monitor calibration and the Spyder Checker with its Spyder Checker software for color correction for image capture. Both of these products are linked below, so you can go read more about them, get all the details, check out other products from Datacolor. And when you are at the checkout, you can use the special BiteShot discount code by using the promo code BITE for a special discount. So very first, very important thing to make sure is that the actual monitor that you are doing your editing in is correct. Because like, for example, if I go into Ryan's office right now, he's, master and commander of his space, and he's literally got 3 different monitors going. And what makes me crazy from a color standpoint is that I can look at all 3 and all 3 look completely different in terms of the color. One reads really blue, one reads really warm, the other one is just wonky. And so if you're trying to edit and you're like, well, which one is correct? Which one is interpreting the yellows properly? Which one's interpreting the greens properly? That you don't know. So that is when you gotta calibrate your monitor. Now you might think like I did, like, oh, I've got a MacBook Pro with the Retina display, all the fancy stuff, but I wait till you see the before and after of calibrating this monitor. So this right here is the Spyder 5 Pro. This is a calibration tool. Now, Datacolor actually makes 3 different versions of this tool. They've got the Spyder 5 Express for $129, the Spyder 5 Pro, which I've got for $189, and the Spyder 5 Elite for $279. They all have various different functions and features, which I will, again, link down below. But all of these work on laptop and desktop, so never fear, you'll be rocking and rolling with this little guy right here. How cute is this? It's like a mouse, but not. Now, I know what's gonna happen. You're gonna get this and you'll be like, okay, now I wanna play with this. But first, very first, you have to install the software. And what is very helpful is all the directions come right in the box as far as the links and where to download everything. And then the best part is that literally the software walks you through everything you need to do. There is no guesswork. This is not complicated at all. I remember thinking like, oh, monitor calibration, that sounds scary. It's not. This is ridiculously easy. So we walk through all of the steps here. First things first, have you warmed up your monitor, because the way that the colors read and everything looks is different when you first launch it up versus 30 minutes later. So make sure you've had it on for at least a half an hour. And then in terms of lighting conditions, just making sure that you don't have any sort of like intense glare or the sun is directly shining onto your screen. Like, don't do this outside. And then the display controls, which will require you to get into your computer and find where is the control that actually sets what is the temperature of that screen. We are shooting for 6,500 Kelvin. And then from there, you take your cute little Spyder. So cute. He's got a USB. So hopefully you've got a USB here on your computer. All right, so it comes assembled just like this, and this little piece on the back, it just pops right off, just like a lens cap, more or less. And what you can do is then move it right down the cord like that, because this is gonna, in a moment, serve as a counterweight. So right now we've done everything, did all our introductory stuff, so we hit next. And now are we using a desktop or a laptop? I'm using a laptop. Okay, and then what is the manufacturer? So I am using an Apple, and then the laptop model, the Color LCD. So this is when you go into the settings, what is the setting for your particular monitor here. Okay, so there is that. All right, so then at that point, you are going to select what kind of calibration we're gonna do. Now, I just very recently calibrated my monitor, so I am going to recalibrate it. But if you are doing this for the first time ever, you've never calibrated it before, which is gonna make the before and after that much more exciting, you're going to use the full calibration. But for purposes of this demonstration and the thought process that maybe you've never done this before, I'm going to go ahead and do the full calibration, which honestly still only takes about 5 minutes time. All right, so now I've got the two pieces, and what it is asking me to do is place this on the screen. How cool is this, right? I don't know why this is so entertaining to me. I'm sure people are like, Joni, it's just a calibrator, but I get excited. All right, so from there, again, we take the little counterweight piece and we put that behind the screen, and then I am putting the Spyder 5 Pro right flush up to the monitor, right? So that this is literally like it's sticking to it, because what it is doing is reading the colors on the screen, and it can't do that if it's not flush and it's not touching. And then we hit the next button and it's gonna do its thing. Now we just sit and wait. All right, and then it is all finished. You take the Spyder off and we hit finish. And then this is the best part. So what you want to do is you want to save your new profile, like save it as a name, so that when you go into the listings of your monitor calibrations, you can select this specific one. And this is something that you will want to do on an every so often basis, because the calibration will change the colors over time. Things change, they morph a little bit. It's not a perfect system. So that's why you want to continue to recalibrate. And you can go ahead and let this set you a reminder for 1 month from now. Let's just do this again, do another recalibration so that you are always on your game. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and save this Apple Color LCD Spyder. There we go, save that. And then what that's gonna do is it will automatically communicate with your system, with the monitor, in order to now input that new profile, if you will, so that the colors are now calibrated and fabulous. Then we'll be able to see, okay, here is our new freshly calibrated view. But if you hit switch, oh my gosh, do you see? Especially things like skin tones and the reds and the oranges, at least here on my monitor. And again, this is a really nice Retina display, MacBook Pro, and still, these are very important measures to take, because just imagine if you're editing with thinking that your colors are correct, and then all of a sudden it gets printed and you're like, why do those skin tones look so green? Or why do they look so red? Because you've overcompensated. So this exactly is why you need to make sure to calibrate your monitor. Okay, now that little guy, he's all safe in his case. So now we have a beautifully calibrated monitor, but now comes the question of, well, what about my camera and how it specifically captures the colors based on the sensor, based on the make and model, based on lighting situation? I mean, there's so much that impacts color in terms of the capture. And so that's where this little guy comes in handy. This is the Spyder Checker, and he comes with the Spyder Checker software, which is a raw color calibration software. And what you see here are 48 different swatches, because you know there are times you have taken a picture and you have looked at like the white tablecloth and you're like, okay, this is the color of white that tablecloth is. But then you look over at like the banana, and the banana is supposed to be this color yellow, but it's kind of not that color yellow. And you're like, the white tablecloth looks right, but then the banana looks wrong, or the cherries look wrong, or something just doesn't look right in terms of the color. So then you're sitting there messing around with the sliders in the color section in Lightroom, trying to adjust the hue and trying to adjust the luminance, and just like getting really frustrated. So this is a helpful reference that we can use in the image capture stage in order to ensure that all of those colors are interpreted correctly once we get it into the processing. And we're actually going to create a preset in Lightroom. So get excited. So first things first, you want to make sure that you are shooting in RAW, which if you don't know what that is, or you don't know how to do it, I've got a video all about it linked right up over here. But that is going to be important for being compatible with our Spyder Checker software. And then from there, for the very first time ever using this, you want to make sure that you have downloaded the Spyder Checker software, and then made sure to configure that to then your editing software. And I have a link down below with the actual user's manual that takes you step by step, depending on if you're using Lightroom or Lightroom or Photoshop or Hasselblad Focus. and then you are ready to rock. So now at this point, I have a scene all set up with some tea and some homemade rolls. So now what we want to do, and this is the very first thing that you're going to do when you use this, is you jump into the scene, make sure all the lighting is set how you want it. So in this case, I'm using natural light, but if you were using strobes or you're using speed lights or you're using your LEDs, what have you, that you have that all set up. So then when we take our reference shot, that everything is going to be more or less the same then throughout the rest of our shoot in terms of the lighting, in terms of the color. And so you take that reference shot with this in the scene, then you put this away, you go about your business, you do the rest of the shoot, and then once we jump into Lightroom, this is where the magic happens. Now another super helpful thing on this is that it's got a 1/4-20 on the bottom, so you can actually mount this to a light stand. So if you're in a situation, of course, where it's not a flat lay and you need it up and down, you can just put it on a light stand or have the model hold it, or you can prop it in the scene. Lots of ways to get that done. So once we are in Lightroom, then you look for the image, that very first reference shot, and then what we want to do is actually crop that down so it is just the spider checker in the image. So what you want to do is open up your aspect ratio there and then go ahead and crop it down just like yay. There we go. So only the 48 color swatches are being included. There we go. Looks great. Oh, it's a little crooked. Hold on. Let's fix that. All right, straighten it out. I gotta make sure everything's straightened out. Okay, close enough. So now at this point, what you wanna do is grab the eyedropper. This is where we are gonna set the white balance. So you pick up the eyedropper and you are looking for the 20% gray, which this looks like white, but it's actually technically gray because it's not true white. And you wanna drop the eyedropper there. That is gonna base your white balance on that neutral square. So now we wanna set the white point. So use that magnifying glass, hover over that white square above it, and you can see if you look right underneath the histogram, there's some readouts right there. You can see that it says 89.8. So what I wanna do is increase the exposure so that that is increased to at least 96. Woo, brightening it all up. And then what we want to do is set the black point. So if you go down to this box down at the bottom, that is your black, and you can see that is currently 15%. We want that down to 4. So if you go down into the blacks here in our adjustment panel, here in the develop module, then you can go ahead, decrease those by just pushing the arrow down button, keeping that little magnifying glass over the black, and we are reducing. We just keep on going. There we go, 4.6, close enough. So that feels great. So now that the image is properly balanced, what we want to do is go up to Photo, Edit in, Spider Checker. And if that is not there, it's because there was some sort of issue in downloading or installing or configuring the software. So go ahead and zip back earlier into the video and check the description box below for the instructions on that. But once you have that software properly configured, this will be in your menu of options and you can hit Edit in Spider Checker. And we want to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. So that means that the adjustments we made to the exposure and to the black point will be brought across. All right, and then every time you load this, it will look for updates to the software. And now what you will see, you've got your little cursor. You can grab all these little squares and move them around. These are the reference points for the actual picture we took in terms of the colors and what those color values should be. So you go ahead and drop those so that they more or less match up inside the square. If you need to drag it, you can just grab the edge, make it larger or smaller. There we go, drop them over their corresponding squares. And then you've got the mode. So you do have the option for saturation or portrait. The saturation works, I think, personally for things like a landscape or things that you typically would add more saturation to. In the world of food, I generally, personally, just in my editing style, am usually backing off the saturation because you don't want things to necessarily look unnatural unless that's your style. And then portrait, that's really gonna kind of key into a lot of those skin tones, which are not generally as applicable for food, but that's something to play with. Feel free to experiment, but I generally will select color metric, and then at this point I am saving it to Lightroom, or depending on the software you're using, you've got Adobe Camera Raw or Focus. So I'm gonna go ahead and save the calibration, and then what we want to do is name this as a preset because this is actually going to save into our presets area in Lightroom. And so now what I do is I generally will name this whatever the particular shoot and setup was so that I can remember, okay, this was the daylight with the rolls and tea. All right? So I don't get confused when I get over in the Lightroom, especially if you are shooting multiple shoots in the course of the day, you remember which one corresponds with which one. All right, and now at this point, what that has done is created a preset for us inside of Lightroom. So we'll go ahead and quit this, and then you want to restart Lightroom because Lightroom needs to now take on those changes that we just added. Okay, we have relaunched Lightroom, and now we are back in the folder where all of the photos are from our shoot, and we're back at that reference photo. And now if we go into the presets area, what you can see is we have that daylight rolls and tea that we made. So awesome, right? So now if we apply it to this reference photo, you'll see, boom, how it's changed those colors. It adjusted them, and we can even see over here in the panel how it has altered these various colors. I mean, look at those yellows. That has really impacted the hue, the saturation, the luminance, and it took all the guesswork out of it for us. And so now what we can do, because this image is correct, and then all the rest of the images in the gallery were shot in those same conditions, what I can do is hold the shift while highlighting that reference photo, highlight the last one in the group, and then you go over to sync, and this will sync all of the settings. Now, you don't have to necessarily change the white point, the black point, all that like we did in this adjustment, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that, pull that across, and then what you can do is go ahead and look at all those individual photos and see that they have been color corrected, and now we can go about our editing as normal. Isn't that nifty? And didn't that save you so much time? Oh my gosh. So now what I can do is go in and do my standard editing process at this point. Change the adjustments in terms of contrast and lighting and shadow, all those things. And you can definitely then at this point also change the colors, but you can make those as artistic decisions as opposed to like, is this correct? Is this, like, you have a really solid baseline to work from at this point because everything's consistent. And this applies no matter what camera you're using, no matter what lighting scenario you're in, no matter where you go, you can always get consistent color. But now one thing to keep in mind is that if you're on a shoot and you start indoors and you're like, heck yes, I'm awesome, I'm gonna do my spider checker, life is good, you get your reference shot, and then you keep on shooting, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's take the party outside. You need to do a new reference shot because it's a new lighting scenario. And the same would apply if you're starting to use a different camera within the course of a shoot. So just kind of things to keep in mind is what is impacting the color, and that's typically going to be a location, lighting, or camera thing. So anytime you make a change to one of those, you want to get this guy out, take a new reference shot. So hopefully you have learned a thing or two here today. Hopefully you're excited about getting consistent color, and certainly if you have any questions, I've got the comment section below. Happy to help you out. And just a reminder, got links to all the products down below. Thanks to our friends at Datacolor for sponsoring today's video. And don't forget to use that promo code BITE on checkout. And I've got a brand new Spyder 5 Pro ready to give away, and all the details of it down are in the description box below, so you can enter to win. So with that, I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you color correct like a boss and you stay out of trouble. I'll see you soon, okay? Bye.